For us, that perfect storm happened back in 2007, where the revolution, our biggest revolution, was started for us, and that an idea really came forward. And back in 2007, if you were around at that time, if you're in the beer industry, you remember there was something of a hop shortage. And the hop shortage kind of freaked out the industry a little bit. They didn't think they were going to have a shortage, and then all of a sudden it was like, holy shit, there's a ton of brewers, and we don't have any hops, and everybody's freaking out. And Jack Joyce, our founder, this guy you see up on the screen, he was sitting in a board meeting, kind of famously, and all these guys, you know, these high-level ex-Nike guys, you know, that's a small little shoe company up in Oregon. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. They helped start Rogue, and they're kicking around all these ideas. And Jack says, "Well, what if we just got into farming?" And he said, "Farming? Well, yeah, what if we did that? That'd be crazy. What if we did that?" Before you knew it, Jack was on the phone, and he's making phone calls all over Oregon. And he's trying to find a farm. He's trying to find anybody that'll call him back on farming, on growing hops and growing barley and anything. He's just trying to get a call back. And lo and behold, he gets a call back from the Colemans. And the Colemans owned a farm in Independence, Oregon, which I'll cover some geography with you here in a second. And the Colemans called him back, and Rogue Farms was born in 2007. We started off with hops. Hops are kind of the prettiest girl at the prom. They're sort of the thing that everybody talks about. And after hops, we sort of branched out from there. It was like, yeah, this farm thing's going to work, so let's try other stuff. Let's try barley. Let's try pumpkins. Let's try jalapenos. Let's throw some bees in there and see how that works. So it just sort of grew from there. And from those ingredients, products started to emerge. Products that embodied really an ethos of Rogue, which is dare, risk, dream. You know, dare hard, risk a lot, dream big. And it really kicked off the GYO revolution for us, which was grow your own. You know, Rogue's interesting from a brewery perspective because we do everything in-house. We only work with one agency, and it's the agency that handles our internet site. And the only reason that we do that is because we can't figure out how to code and would probably screw it up if we worked on it anyway. So we have to bring in the high-level nerds to help us out with our site. But other than that, everything is done in-house. We are a do-it-yourself revolution. And the farms is kind of the perfect embodiment of that. So from these ingredients, products started to emerge. And it's these products that I'm going to talk to you about today. We're going to cover 4 of them, and I'll tell you sort of the stories behind them. But before we get going, I want to give you guys a little bit of a geography lesson. We're going to go to school here for a minute. So this is Oregon. This is where Rogue is. Oregon is a state. There's 50 of them in the United States, okay? Oregon's one of them. I actually met a guy in Florida one time. He asked me where I was from. I said Oregon, and he kind of looked at me sideways. And I said, above California? And he said, Washington? I said, no, there's a state below that. I thought that was California. No, there's a state in the middle, and it's called Oregon. So this is Oregon, next to Idaho, below Washington, not Washington, above California, and also above Nevada, not Nevada. So just so you know. Portland's here, this biggest city in good old Oregon. It's where all the hipsters live. It's where Rogue's main offices are. You have the brewery, which is over in Newport on the coast, about 2.5 hours down from Portland. You've got the Independence, Oregon, which is a really, really, really small town right by Salem, the capital. That's where our first farm is, in Independence. And then over kind of in the middle of the state, you have the Tye Valley. That's where we grow all of our barley. So a little bit of a geography lesson. Again, Oregon, not Oregon or Oregon. So let's talk products. The first product that we're going to talk about is Pumpkin Patch Ale. And I guess the best way to introduce Pumpkin Patch Ale is my mom hates Christmas. Well, she doesn't really hate Christmas. I think Christmas annoys her because it always pisses my mom off when she goes to the store in September and there's Christmas stuff in the store, right? Why is there Christmas stuff in the store? It's not even close to Christmas, not even winter. This always drives me crazy. It clutters up the store, and I kind of have to calm her down and shuffle her out the store. But that's my favorite marketing term. So you're going to learn a marketing term tonight. You're welcome before we get going. The marketing term is called seasonal creep. Okay, seasonal creep. You use that at a cocktail party. People will think you're super smart. So what's seasonal creep? So seasonal creep is what we see happening with pumpkin beers. That's why you get pumpkin beers in June. Now, I don't know if you guys know, little like kind of remedial farm math here. Pumpkins are not ripe in June, okay? Pumpkins are ripe in September. Pumpkins actually grow out of the ground on a bush. They're called a gourd. What's really interesting is I asked a bunch of our new marketing people, where does beer come from? And everybody said, beer comes from Germany. No, it doesn't. It comes from the ground. This stuff actually grows, I swear. So again, we're in Independence, Oregon, which is right outside of Salem. That's where this farm is. We grow pumpkins, jalapenos, bees, hops, cucumbers, all kinds of herbs at this farm in Independence. So this is where pumpkins come from. This is called a pumpkin seed. Put the pumpkin seed in the ground, a little bit of sun, a little bit of rain, a little bit of dirt, and this thing turns into a pumpkin. So the pumpkins for us, depending upon the summer that we have, they'll grow fairly rapidly. This year we had a ton of sun, not a whole lot of rain, so the pumpkins grew really quick. And before we knew it, we were harvesting these things in August, which is super, super early. At Rogue Farms in Independence, this is called Field 2. We call it Field 2 because we're not creative enough to name it anything else. So Field 2, to the right of the tractor, is the pumpkin part of this particular field. To the left of the tractor is jalapenos. All the way over to the right is this thing called corn. And then way over to the left is where we keep our bees, which we'll get to here in a second. So this is the pumpkin harvest. Now, who is harvesting these pumpkins? Who are these great folks that are going through and chopping these things off these bushes by hand? These are our employees. We're down in the dirt. We do it ourselves. These are marketing people and a couple salespeople, believe it or not, who are chopping these things up and harvesting them. It's kind of hilarious to actually see them get dirty, to be totally honest with you. So they go through the field and they harvest these things by hand. They pitch them together, they form these piles in the middle, and then they fill up the bins with the pumpkins. This is a guy named Logan. Logan handles all of our metrics for sales, and here he is harvesting pumpkins by hand. So again, they pitch these things in these big bins. The lady with the hat on is Claire. She's our social media director out there getting dirty in the dirt. I love this photo. This is our East Coast sales guy named John Lasseter. We call him Lassie for short, like the show with the dog. If you're not old enough to know what Lassie is, I officially feel old and will probably drink myself to sleep after I give this presentation. But needless to say, this is Lassie. I love two things about this picture. Number one, the focus in his eyes is absolutely amazing. He is absolutely watching that pumpkin coming at him. My second favorite thing is that he's holding a giant machete in his other hand. So if old Lassie here can't catch that damn pumpkin, he is handless. So don't tell the safety department that Lassie was trying to catch a pumpkin with a machete in his hand. So this is what pumpkins look like. Pumpkins don't just come in cans. They don't just come puree form. They don't come extract form. They actually look like that. They're not just for jack-o'-lanterns. You can eat them. I promise. These are called sugar pumpkins. They throw them together in these bins, and then they cart them off 77 miles to the coast where they get to Newport, where our brewery is. We have a bunch of employees out in front of the brewery that chop these things up with those big Lasseter machetes. They rip the seeds out of them. They throw them in pizza ovens to roast them. They take them right into the brewery and pitch them in, and they brew with those pumpkins. The beer you guys are trying right now is our Pumpkin Patch Ale. Just came out. We just brewed it a few weeks ago. It's about as fresh as you can get as far as a pumpkin ale is concerned. Whoop. So there it is. That's Pumpkin Patch Ale. It's in an orange bottle. Does anybody know why it's in an orange bottle? Because it's pumpkins. Right, yeah. You obviously graduated from college. That Harvard education has done you well. It's in an orange bottle because the pumpkins are orange. You would be surprised how many people don't put two and two together. Okay, Marionberry Braggot is our next beer. Braggot is an interesting product. It's an interesting style. So basically what a braggot is a braggot is a beer that gets its fermentable sugars part from malt and part from honey. There's no real determining recipe considerations with how much barley and how much malt. It just depends on what the brewer wants to put together, what ratio he or she wants to use. Marionberry Braggot is great because it uses honey, and we make our own honey at the farm. Actually, we don't make it. Our Rogue Farms bees make it, right? And here are the bees. The bees are hanging out by the road leading into the farm in Independence, right in front of the hops. You'll see in front of the hops there along the road, those are wildflowers that we plant so the bees have something to eat. The crazy thing about honey is that honey takes on the flavors of everything around it. So the honey that's in the beer, it is a taste of Oregon's terroir because the bees feed on plants around the area and then create the honey from whatever's around them. These black things on top of the hives, I actually had to ask what the hell those were because I didn't know. They're bee food. So you know, like when you have a gerbil and you have the water bottle with the water in it, right? That's kind of the same sort of ish thing, but for bees. So let's talk about bees for a minute. We have 119 colonies of bees. How many bees are in a colony? I have no idea. Big colonies are 60,000 bees, somewhere along that range. We say we have about 7,140,258 bees, give or take 1 or 2 bees, depending upon the season. Bees are a phenomenal insect. The only food source that we get from insects is honey. We don't get a food source from any other insects unless you count eating the insects, but that's a whole other story for a whole other presentation. Bees fly up to 15 miles an hour. They fly roughly about up to 5 miles away from the hive to get their pollen. A worker bee's lifespan is about 4 to 6 months in the winter, but it's only 6 weeks in the summer. Does anybody have any idea why that might be? You know what? You from Harvard know everything. The number one factor that kills bees in the summertime is they wear out their wings. No joke. They fly so much and so far that they wear out their wings. 1 quart of honey, there's roughly about 48,000 bee miles in that honey, not beer miles. Yeah, beer miles do sound better. So anyways, bees are super phenomenal. We love them. We grew the colonies from 19 to 119. We take care of them. We actually have a beekeeper that's on staff at the farms. This is him right now, giving the bees a little bit of smoke, which helps kind of calm them down so we can get in there and extract the honey from them. This is our Lord and Savior, John Meyer, who is examining a bee super for honey during honey harvest. He takes this kind of cool hot knife, cuts off the wax cap, the end layer of that honey super. We throw it in an extractor where we crank that thing by hand, and voila, we have Rogue Farms honey. So these are marionberries. So essentially what marionberries are, without giving you an ag science degree before you walk out here, is marionberries are basically a hybrid breed of blackberries that the USDA and the guys from Oregon State University, which is in Oregon, it's in Corvallis, they kind of cross-pollinated and made marionberries, which are the most popular kind of blackberry in Oregon. Oregon produces a massive amount of these for the country. And so we took marionberries, threw in our honey, and made marionberry braggot that you guys are trying today. Cool fun fact about marionberries is that there's a strain of marionberries that are really rare, and I love this term. So you guys have seasonal creep, and now you have prickless marionberries. So prickless marionberries is your next cocktail party term. And we actually have prickless marionberries at Rogue Farms. That's not to say that we don't have any pricks, but again, a different story for a different presentation. So marionberry braggot comes in a purple bottle. Does anybody know why the bottle is purple? Because the berries are purple, right? Easy. So that is marionberry braggot. Really sweet. You can taste a little bit of the berry in the beer, but be careful. This thing weighs in at roughly 11, 12, 13%, depending upon the batch, depending upon how much honey John decides to use in that particular batch. All right, so good Chit Pilsner. We're moving from Independence, which is in Salem. We're moving to the center of the state, the Tye Valley. Now, so whenever you think of Portland, a lot of people think of rain. They think of tons of trees. The middle of the state's way different. This is what the middle of Oregon looks like. It's kind of high desert, a lot of barley fields. We grow 100 acres of Dare barley and Risk barley out in the Tye Valley. This is kind of what it looks like during harvest. It's really interesting. How do we know when harvest is going to happen? Believe it or not, the farmers out there in the Tye Valley, they grab the barley and they bite it. And the harder the barley is, the closer it is to being ready to be harvested. So they'll call us up one morning and they'll say the barley's ready to go. We bit into it this morning. You guys better get out here. It's a 3-hour drive. We're going to start harvesting. This is Doc McAllister. This guy grew up a farmer, became a thyroid surgeon, believe it or not, and is now helping us with our barley. So he helps us grow the barley that we use for good Chit Pilsner that you guys are trying right now. Eric Hyatt is our floor malter. So the interesting thing about good Chit Pilsner is that it actually uses floor malted barley. What floor malting is you steep the barley until it starts to grow that little rootlet, which is called chit, chitted grain. Get it? Okay? So you throw the chitted grain on the floor on a concrete slab, and you turn it every so often. You watch it for about 24 to 36 hours of flipping until that thing is malted and dried to perfection. Eric's about as authentic as you can get. He is an Eastern Oregon cowboy. I was hanging out with Eric in Newport about 2 months ago. He walked out of the hotel in Newport, big giant belt buckle, big old cowboy boots, and he looks up in the sky and he goes, "Gonna rain." And he spit out a ton of tobacco and took off to the brewery. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be like you. I'm such a city boy. Like, oh, it's gonna rain, put my jacket on. And he's 100% man. It was fantastic. So that's good Chit Pilsner. Enjoying good health. It is one of the few Pilsners that we make, but very unique again because we use that floor malted barley in there. We floor malt that stuff in about 500-pound batches. So it's super small, super micro malt. So then finally, we get to, again, I know I already used the prettiest girl at the prom analogy, but I'll use it again. 7-Hop is certainly that for us. 7-Hop as probably one of my favorite stories because it has to do with the hops. So when we got involved in farming back in 2007, we approached the farmers and they didn't grow any hops on their hop farm. Now you have to understand the Willamette Valley in Oregon, where Salem and Portland is kind of like Yakima, Washington. It is the most fertile ground for growing hops in the entire world. It's kind of like the Napa Valley for growing hops, but it's in Oregon and Washington. And these guys didn't grow any hops. The contracts that they had to grow hops they had with Budweiser. When Budweiser got bought out by InBev, those contracts went away, so they had to grow something on the farm. They started growing grass seed and cauliflower, believe it or not. So we get a hold of them and we say, no, screw that, we're growing hops. So we grew 42 acres of aroma hops on this farm. And I'll tell you, you haven't seen anything as gorgeous until you've been to a farm during hop harvest. It is absolutely a glorious, glorious time. Like I'm sure most of you know, these hop bines are roughly about 20 feet tall. This is a top trimmer, a top cutter, which actually cuts the hops, you guessed it, at the top. And we harvest these in middle August to early September. Again, just like the barley, we have our farmer who walks out, grabs one of the hop cones off the vine, and squeezes it every single morning. And one day he squeezes it and he knows it's good to go. He knows it's at that 20-25% moisture content, calls us up and says, you know what, we're harvesting hops today. You guys better get ready. So that's exactly what we do that day is we harvest, we pick, we sort, cool all these hops, and then finally we bale them in about these 200-pound bales. A couple of high school kids at the end of this thing where their summer job is to yank these things off the line that weigh about 200 pounds, and they test them for temperature, and they actually hand sew them into their bags. So it's a crazy, crazy, crazy by hand process. So one day, about a year and a half ago, our president, Brett Joyce, has on a whiteboard in his office all the ingredients that we grow at the farm. Pumpkins, jalapenos, honey, barley, everything we grow at the farm. And next to the ingredient, he has the product that we make. So pumpkins, pumpkin patch. Honey, we make a honey kolsch and a mead at the time. Barley, we made the single malt ale, and we have good Chit Pilsner. Jalapenos, we make Chipotle Ale. So he gets down to hops, and we don't have a product for the hops. Like, we forgot the hops. Who forgets who doesn't make a product for the hops, right? So what we do is we get together with John. Brett calls John in Newport and says, John, we need a product for the hops. You do whatever you want, right? You can do whatever you want. I don't even care what it is. You do whatever you want. I trust you. You're the genius. Make whatever you want. So what John does is he doesn't use one of our hops or two of our hops or three of our hops. He uses, Harvard, how many hops does he use in 7-Hop IPA? Yeah, good job. 7 hops. So he uses every hop that we have in 7-Hop IPA, and immediately we knew that we had something. We knew we had something unique and something different. All of a sudden, we had an IPA with a huge hop-forward nose, with an incredible hop taste that was light-ish and easy-ish to drink, but also carried with it a little bit of that bitterness and that punch that you know and love in all of your IPAs. And 7 Hop IPA immediately did the impossible. Our number one beer at all of our pubs is our Brutal IPA, and it leapt over it. Something that we never, ever, ever thought would be possible. And sure enough, 7 Hop IPA did it. And it's all because of these babies that we grow, harvest, strain, stake, cool, sort, and bale at Rogue Farms and Independence. So this is 7 Hop IPA. So to kind of wrap up here, at Rogue, we always ask, what if we? What if we? What if we started growing our own hops? Because we don't want to short John with the hops he can use in his brews because of a hop shortage. What if we got 119 colonies of bees and harvested our own honey? What if we grew our own jalapenos and made chipotles out of them, right? What if we grew our own pumpkins? And it's that dare, risk, dream attitude. You know, we don't let the accountants run the business. We try to keep the business folks out of the business. And we constantly strive to ask ourselves, what if we? And hopefully we can find that next instance, that next circumstance that leads to the next idea that helps push the next revolution forward. So thanks a lot. You guys have any questions? Remember, I'm a marketing guy, hold your applause, not a farmer. So go easy on me.
Hello? Oh, okay. Do the bees get any of the hops? Do they get flavor from? I mean, I know that they have like Tupelo honey. The hops are they're that close that do they get any the hop flavor in the honey?
No.
No? Okay. How many hop varieties do you do? And I want to know when you malt your barley, are you using the traditional barleys that are purchased on the market, or is the malt come from the barley that you use is the only stuff that you use at all?
Yeah, is the barley special? Kind of. The barley's our own proprietary strain of barley. You can't go get it off the shelf. Does that answer your question? We won't share it. Well, maybe, if you ask nicely.
Do you use barley from other vendors?
Yeah, I know where I think I understand where you're going. We don't grow enough at the farm to handle all of our beers. You're talking about 48 different styles all year long. Farms aren't that big. But our farm series, our Rogue Farm series, is 100% farm product. So we do pull in barley from Great Western and from other areas.
Okay, so that's for the farm series specifically only.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. We do use some barley in all of our other styles, but not completely, not 100%.
The hop varieties, how many different what are the different hopper varieties that you use? You say you use 7 different hops that you grow there on site.
Right. We use 7 different hops for 7 Hop IPA, but we actually grow 8. And there are 8 different varieties of aroma hops that are based off of the hops that you know and love that are out there. However, they're our own sort of proprietary twist on all of those hops. So we breed them and kind of tweak with them a little bit and make them our own. So they're kind of unique to us.
Can you train those bees to go over and get some hops, honey?
I'll try.
Okay, thank you.
They're finicky. I don't like to get close to them. They get pissed. But, you know, bees will be bees. Any other questions? Awesome. All right, guys. Hey, I really appreciate the time. Thanks for listening to me. Thanks for listening to the stories. Have a great rest of GABF. Be safe. Take it easy. Thank you.
The Brewing Network.